What's up, y'all? How are you doing? This is Sunko, the Korean bro. How are you guys doing? Tonight, I'm going to eat something as always, and so far I've been eating random food. If you've been tracking me these days, but from now on it's going to be a bit different because I'm going to choose food based on certain contents that I've been thinking of. And first challenge that got my attention is dollar food in Korea. Well, as a student or a person who had no money, a dollar food was so important for me. Um, when I was a student, I felt so happy. I felt happiness when I had food that tasted so good yet cheap at the same time. So what I brought here today is samgakgimbab. If you ever traveled Asian countries or in Korea, it's easy for you to see. It's everywhere. Um, this can be found in every convenience store in Korea, and I pick it up from convenience store. Well, especially in the morning when I'm busy, there are a lot of varieties too. Well, in this case, it's made out of tuna, beef, milk, and something like that, and tuna and mixed with other side ingredients. And this is tonight's menu. I'm going to have it and tell you how it tastes like. And after eating that, I'm going to read a new book which is called The Most Dangerous Game, written by Richard Cornell. And this is short story. Of course, this is also public domain free book. I picked this up because it said it's a really popular book, and at the same time, it's a horror story. I love horror stories. So, anyway, first eating time. I'm going to eat this tonight first, and then read a book. Okay? All right, let's see. Hey, how are you? Hello, Imong. Tonight's menu is a samgakgimbab. It's what I brought tonight. I'll tell you how it tastes like. Okay? Mmm. Mmm. Wait, hold on for a sec. It's hard for me to talk with food inside my mouth, okay? Just so you know, it's less than $1. I paid 1,001, which is less than $1. It's pretty good deal for a student or someone who has no money. Because when you get it, you become full right away. It's been like that pretty much. Mmm. Let's drink together? Of course, I'd love to. I love drinking with you, of course. Oh, okay. It's now live, so I have to be cautious of what I say. Okay? I'll tell you what I think after this live is over. Anyway, what's important at this point is the food that I have and the book that I'm about to read. this tuna and dishes, other ingredients all mixed inside this kimbap is so good. So good. Mmm. 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 Next time, okay, let me talk after I eat this. It's so stuffy inside. Mmm. Awesome. Next time I eat something, I have to make sure that I bring something to drink. Cause I mean, like you said, I'm a bit thirsty, but while I'm doing this live thingy, I cannot just go right away and just bring new beverage, you know. I cannot be vacant. Anyway, tonight's menu: tuna samgakgimbab sandwich. Not sandwich, like samgakgimbab. So good. Go try it. Uh, if you are a traveler, of course, then you must try this. Gotta try menu. I'm telling you. And before I start reading a book, let me tell you what this book is. Okay, I explained it a few minutes ago, but I want to explain one more time. It's called "The Most Dangerous Game," written by Kono. Kono wrote Alice in the Wonderland. It's the guy who lived a long, long time ago. From what I know, he passed away. So now it's a public domain free book. Oh. I'll see if it's really scary or not. Okay, because you know the horror story these days are so scary. It's made onto like horror movie, like way new version. But I'll see if it's that scary or not. Okay, and from now on, I'm going to read a book. So if you are not interested in into hearing someone else reading a book, then you can skip it and you can see me on uploaded version of what I added it. Okay, it's going to be published on YouTube as well. The Most Dangerous Game. Okay, The Most Dangerous Game. Richard Connell. Oh my God! Look what I just found. Yeah, certainly. Like here, it's this is about Kono, the writer. He says he passed away in 1949. So it's the guy who lived a long time ago. It's brief description of who he is. He was an American author and journalist best known for his short story, The Most Dangerous Game. Kono was one of the best known American short story writers of his time, and his stories appear in the Saturday Evening Post and Collier's Weekly. Kono had equal success as a journalist and screenwriter. He was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Story for 1941's Meet John Doe. He died of a heart attack in Beverly Hills, California on November 22nd, 1949, at the age of 56. Okay, at the age of 56, he passed away with heart attack. Okay. Hmm. Mm, okay, let me begin the story. I think something is wrong with this ebook. I just downloaded it like 10 minutes ago and some of are skipped. I don't know what's happened here. Anyway, I'll read. Off there to the right somewhere is a large island, said Whitney. It's rather mystery. What island is it? Rainsford asked. The old charts call it Sheep Trap Island, Whitney replied. A suggestive name, isn't it? Sailors have a curious dread of the place. I don't know why. Some superstition. Can't see it, remarked Rainsford. Trying to trying to peered through the dank tropical night that was palpable as it pressed its thick warm blackness in upon the yacht. Okay. You've good eyes, said Whitney with a laugh, and I've seen you peek off a moose moving in the brown fall bush at 400 yards. But even you can't see 4 miles or so through a moonless Caribbean night. Nor 4 yards, admitted Rainsford on. It's like moist black velvet. We'll be light enough in Rio, promised Whitney. We should make it in a few days. I hope the jogger guns have come from parties. We should have some good hunting up the Amazon. Great sport hunting. The best sport in the world, agreed Rainsford. For the hunter, amended Whitney. Not for the jogger. Don't talk rot, Whitney, said Rainsford. You are a big game hunter, not a philosopher. Who cares how a jogger feels? Perhaps a jogger does, observed Whitney. But they've no understanding. Even so, I rather think they understand one thing fear. The fear of pain, the fear of death. Nonsense, laughed Rainsford. This hot weather is making you soft. Whitney, be a realist. The world is made up of two classes, the hunters and the haunties. Luckily, you and I are hunters. Do you think we've passed that island yet? I can't tell in the dark, I hope so. Why? Asked Rainsford. The place has a reputation, a bad one. Cannibals? Suggested Rainsford. Hardly. Even cannibals wouldn't live in such a god-forsaken place. But it's gotten into sailor lore somehow. Didn't you notice that the crew's nerves seemed a bit jumpy today? They were a bit strange, now you mention it. Even Captain Nelson. Yes, even that tough-minded old swad who'd go up to the devil himself and ask him for a light. Those fish blue eyes held a look I never saw there before. All I could get out of him was this place has an evil name among seafaring men, sir. Then he said to me very gravely, don't you feel anything? As if the air about us was actually poisonous. Now you mustn't laugh when I tell you this. I did feel something like a sudden chill. There was no breeze. The sea was as flat as a plated glass window. We were drawing near the island then. What I felt was a mental chill, a sort of sudden dread. Pure imagination, said Rainsford. One superstitious sailor can taint the whole ship's company with his fear. Maybe, but sometimes I think sailors have an extra sense that tells them when they are in danger. Sometimes I think evil is a tangible thing with wavelength, just as sound and light have. An evil place can, so to speak, broadcast vibrations of evil. Anyhow, I'm glad we're getting out of this zone. Well, I think I'll turn in now, Rainsford. I'm not sleepy, said Rainsford. I'm going to smoke another pipe up on the after deck. Good night then, Rainsford. See you at breakfast. Right, good night, Whitney. There was no sound in the night, as Rainsford sat there but the muffled throb of the engine that drove the yacht swiftly through the darkness, and the swish and ripple of the wash of the propeller. Rainsford, reclining in a steamer chair, indolently puffed on his favorite briar. The sensuous drowsiness of the night was on him. It's so dark, he thought, that I could sleep without closing my eyes. The night would be my eyelids. An abrupt sound startled him. Off to the right he heard it, and his ears, expert in such matters, could not be mistaken. Again he heard the sound again. Somewhere off in the blackness, someone had fired a gun 3 times. Rainsford sprang up and moved quickly to the rail. Mystified, he strained his eyes in the direction from which the reports had come, but it was like trying to see through a blanket. He leaped upon the rail and balanced himself there to get greater elevation. His pipe, striking a rope, was knocked from his mouth. He lunged for it. A short, hoarse cry came from his lips as he realized he had reached too far and had lost his balance. The cry was pinched off short as the blood warm waters of the Caribbean Sea closed over his head. He struggled up to the surface and tried to cry out, but the wash from the speeding yacht slapped him in the face, and the salt water in his open mouth made him gag and strangle. Desperately he struck out with strong strokes after the receding lights of the yacht, but he stopped before he had swum 50 feet. A certain cool-headedness had come to him. It was not the first time he had been in a tight place. There was a chance that his cries could be heard by someone aboard the yacht, but that chance was slender and grew more slender as the yacht raced on. He wrestled himself out of his clothes and shouted with all his power. The lights of the yacht became faint. The lights of the yacht became faint and ever vanishing fireflies. Then they were blotted out entirely by the night. Rainsford remembered the shots. They had come from the right and doggedly swam in that direction, swimming with slow, deliberate strokes, conserving his strength. For a seemingly endless time he fought the sea. He began to count his strokes. He could do possibly 100 more, and then Rainsford heard a sound. It came out of the darkness, a high screaming sound, the sound of an animal in an extremity of anguish and terror. He did not recognize the animal that made the sound. He did not try to. With fresh vitality, he swam toward the sound. He heard it again, then it was cut short by another noise, crisp staccato pistol shot, muttered Rainsford, swimming on. 10 minutes of determined effort brought another sound to his ears, the most welcome he had ever heard, the muttering growling of the sea breaking on a rocky shore. He was almost on the rocks before he saw them. On a night less calm, he would have been shattered against them. With his remaining strength, he dragged himself from the swirling waters. Jagged cracks appeared to jut up into the opaqueness. He forced himself upward, hand over hand, gasping, his hands raw. He reached the flat place at the top. Dense jungle came down to the very edge of the cliffs. What perils that tangle of trees and underbrush might hold for him did not concern Rainsford just then. All he knew was that he was safe from his enemy. The sea and that utter awareness was on him. He flung himself down at the jungle edge and tumbled headlong into the deepest sleep of his life. When he opened his eyes, he knew from the position of the sun that it was late in the afternoon. Sleep had given him a new vigor. A sharp hunger was picking at him. He looked about him almost cheerfully. Where there are pistol shots, there are men. Where there are men, there is food, he thought. But what kind of man, he wondered, in so forbidding a place? An unbroken front of gnarled and ragged jungle fringed the shore. He saw no sign of a trail through the closely knit web of weeds and trees. It was easier to go along the shore, and Rainsford floundered along by the water. Not far from where he landed, he stopped. Some wounded thing, by the evidence a large animal, had thrashed about in the underbrush. The jungle weeds were crushed down, and the moss was lacerated. One patch of weeds was stained crimson. A small glittering object not far away caught Rainsford's eye, and he picked it up. It was an empty cartridge. A 22, he remarked. That's odd. It must have been a fairly large animal, too. The hunter had his nerve with him to tackle it with a light gun. It's clear that the brute put up a fight. I suppose the first three shots I heard was when the hunter flushed his quarry and wounded it. The last shot was when he trailed it here and finished it. He examined the ground closely and found what he had hoped to find, the print of hunting boots. They pointed along the cliff in the direction he had been going. Eagerly he hurried along, now sleeping on a rotten log or a loose stone, but making headway. Night was beginning to settle down on the island. Bleak darkness was blacking out the sea and jungle when Rainsford sighted the lights. He came upon them as he turned a crook in the coastline, and his first thought was that he had come upon a village, for there were many lights, but as he forged along he saw to his great astonishment that all the lights were in one enormous building, a lofty structure with pointed towers plunging upward into the gloom. His eyes made out the shadowy outlines of a palatial chateau. It was set on a high bluff, and on three sides of a cliff dived down to where the sea licked greedy lips in the shadows. Marriage, thought Rainsford, but it was no mirage he found. When he opened the tall, spiked iron gate, the stone steps were real enough. The massive door with a leering gargoyle for a knocker was real enough. Yet above it all hung an air of unreality. He lifted the knocker and it creaked up stiffly as if it had never before been used. He let it fall, and it startled him with its booming loudness. He thought he heard steps within. The door remained closed. Again Rainsford lifted the heavy knocker, let it fall. The door opened as suddenly as if it were on a spring, and Rainsford stood blinking in the river of glaring gold light that poured out. The first thing Rainsford's eyes discerned was the largest man Rainsford had ever seen, a gigantic creature, solidly made and black-bearded to the waist. In his hand the man held a long-barreled revolver, and he was pointing it straight at Rainsford's head. Out of the snore of beard, two small eyes regarded Rainsford. Don't be alarmed, said Rainsford, with a smile which he hoped was disarming. I'm no robber. I fell off a yacht. My name is Sandra Rainsford of New York City. The menacing look in the eyes did not change, the revolver pointing as visually as if the giant were a statue. He gave no sign that he understood Rainsford's words, or that he had even heard them. He was dressed in uniform, a black uniform trimmed with gray astrakhan. I'm a Sand Rainsford of New York. Rainsford began again. I fell off a yacht, and I am hungry. The man's only answer was to raise with his thumb the hammer of his revolver. Then Rainsford saw the man's free hand go to his forehead in a military salute, and he saw him click his heels together and stand at attention. Another man was coming down the broad marble steps, an erect, slender man in evening clothes. He advanced to Rainsford and held out his hand. In a cultivated voice marked by a slight accent, they gave it added precision and deliberateness. He said, "It is a very great pleasure and honor to welcome Mr. Sandra Rainsford, the celebrated hunter, to my home." Automatically, Rainsford shook the man's head. "I've read your book about hunting snow leopards in Tibet, you see," explained the man. "I'm General Zaroff." Rainsford's first impression was that the man was singularly handsome. His second was that there was an original, almost bizarre quality about the general's face. He was a tall man past middle age, for his hair was a vivid white, but his thick eyebrows and pointed military mustache were as black as the night from which Rainsford had come. His eyes too were black and very bright. He had high cheekbones, a sharp cut nose, a spare dark face, the face of a man used to giving orders, the face of an aristocrat. Turning to the giant in uniform, the general made a sign. The giant put away his pistol, saluted, withdrew. "Ivan is an incredibly strong fellow," remarked the general, "but he has the misfortune to be deaf and dumb. A simple fellow, but I'm afraid, like all his race, a bit of savage. He's a Russian. He's a Cossack," said the general, and his smile showed red lips and pointed teeth. "So am I," Kami said. "We shouldn't be chattering here. We can talk later. Now you want clothes, food, rest. You shall have 'em. This is the most restful spot." Ivan had reappeared, and the general spoke to him with lips that moved but gave forth no sound. "Follow Ivan, if you please, Mr. Rainsford," said the general. "I was about to have my dinner when you came. I'll wait for you. You will find that my clothes will fit you, I think." It was to a huge beam ceilinged bedroom with a canopied bed big enough for 6 men that Rainsford followed the silent giant. Even laid out an evening suit, and Rainsford, as he put it on, noticed that it came from a London tailor who ordinarily cut and sewed for none below the rank of duke. The dining room, to which Ivan conducted him, was in many ways remarkable. There was a medieval magnificence about it. It suggested a baronial hall of feudal times, with its oaken panels, its high ceiling, its vast refectory tables, where 2 score men could sit down to eat. About the hall were mounted heads of many animals: lions, tigers, elephants, moose, bears, larger or more perfect specimens Rainsford had never seen. At the great table, the general was sitting alone. "You will have a cocktail, Miss Rainsford," he suggested. The cocktail was surpassingly good, and Rainsford noted the table appointments were of the finest: the linen, the crystal, the silver, the china. They were eating borscht, the rich red soup with whipped cream, so dear to Russian palates. Half apologetically, General Zaroff said, We do our best to preserve the amenities of civilization here. Please forgive any lapses. We are well off the beaten track. Do you think that Champagne has suffered from its long ocean trip? Not in the least, declared Rainsford. He was finding the general a most thoughtful and affable host, a true cosmopolite. But there was a one small trait of the general's that made Rainsford uncomfortable. Whenever he looked up from his plate, he found the general studying him, appraising him narrowly. Perhaps that general was a rough. You were surprised that I recognized your name, you see. I read all books on hunting, published in English, French, and Russian. I have but one passion, my life, Mr. Rainsford, and it is the hunt. You have some wonderful heads there, said Rainsford as he ate a particularly well-cooked flat mignon. That Cape Buffalo is the largest I ever saw. Oh, that fellow, yes, he was a monster. Did he charge you? "Earned me against a tree," said the general. "Fractured my skull, but I got the brooch." "I've always thought," said Rainsford, "that the Cape buffalo is the most dangerous of all big game." For a moment the general did not reply. He was smiling, his curious red-lipped smile. Then he said slowly, "No, you're wrong, sir. The Cape buffalo is not the most dangerous big game." He sipped his wine. "Here in my preserve on this island," he said in the same slow tone, "I hunt more dangerous game." Okay, so far the story has gotten really interesting. A guy, uh, I don't know how old he is, but I think he's about like 30s or 40s. He's pretty much in an island, um, where nobody lives. And well, not nobody lives. Somebody lives, and that somebody seems to be a dangerous person. So far from what I've been reading, that's what I can guess. And I think the main character, Rainsford, will be in danger soon. Hmm. It's been interesting. Okay, let me tell you the rest of the story tomorrow. I'm not sure if it's gonna end tomorrow, but we'll see. Okay, that's it for tonight, and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.